at this demonstration garden, we talk about appropriate technology. I use the scythe to clean up close to where the plants are. And then I use the flail mower, which is down there, to clear up the rest. The scythe gives us long cut materials like this, which is good mulch. The flail mower returns the materials to a pulp, which we can then terminate the cover crop with tillage. The scythe works really well on uneven ground because I have a ditching blade on it, which is a shorter grass blade. However, the flail mower does wider sections, and I did about all this the same rate in which I was able to just outline with the scythe. The flail mower kind of just wants level ground, so there's a little jumping around, a little bouncing that happens as we go through the area. So as this is more mature, it'll get more level, and that'll be easier to do. But a scythe also likes level ground, so it will do better with the level as well. I used the scythe to get around all these areas that had rocks and stuff. And by the way, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead over at the Sustainable Homestead Institute doing some work. But I used the scythe to find the rocks. Rocks would be ideal to put into towers so we can see them better, but still, the scythe lets me do finer work. And the scythe also lets me do really uneven spaces like these hills. Now we can use a string trimmer, which will pulverize the materials as well, but the string trimmer leaves clumpy materials left behind, which is fine if we're just going to rake them up and use them as mulch anyway. So a string trimmer can also be appropriate technology. The problem with the string trimmer is sometimes it touches down on the soil and destroys some of the grass that we're using to cover the soil to retain moisture and to otherwise grow up the biomass. Now, by pulverizing the biomass with the flail mower, we're not only returning it to the soil, but we're returning it with a lot of surface area. So these beds here on the bottom are designed that at the end of the season, we can just simply flail mow the whole thing. So that's one of the other reasons why this whole area was terraced out a little bit more. Now there's still some mounds in place, but over time those mounds will go away, and this will be one big flat area like what's going on over here. Now with the flail mower and the scythe, I got to get these rocks out of here. That's why there's all these rock piles. But this bed is a good example of how everything is all spread apart. And as the grass grows up in between the beds, they can either run the tiller to kill the grass, or they can run the flail mower to pulverize the grass. I would prefer the pulverization of the grass and then raking that grass material into the beds. But we really don't want the grass. We want clover, we want cover crop, not lawn. See, some of this grass spreads. So whether it's tilled between beds, or string trimmed between beds, or scythed and then layered around plants in beds, it just really depends on the space. So here we've got a bunch of brassicas that have gone to seed. It's beautiful flowers, wonderful for the bees. However, if this goes to seed, we're going to have a mess. So I'm going to take the flail mower through the amaranth, the brassicas. I'll leave all these flowers on the hill and stuff, so the bees have something. But again, I took the scythe in here to mark around areas that are going to be trouble, and where there's rocks and such. And plus, I can't bring the flail mower over this hump because this is an erosion control hump to keep the water from coming off the top here. So again, appropriate technologies, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, is going to help you get your garden underway, especially if it's a large garden. And the flail mower will take down stuff that's much higher. So will the scythe, but the scythe prefers there be a little bit of moisture in the grass. But you can see how we're using the cut grass for mulch around. These are watermelons, and around zucchinis and tomatoes and a bunch of brassicas that are finishing up. And you can see that there are two different ways of doing this. We don't remove the crops from the ground. We don't pull out the old plants and throw them in compost or feed them to animals or anything like that. We simply chop and drop and return them to the soil, because even these new beds have a little bit of biomass in them. So we have to mulch, otherwise we have exposed soil. And there is times that there's exposed soil and there's times that there's none. But essentially we let it grow out to let the bees get access to it, let the pollinators get access to it. Then we flail it, or scythe it in order to make biomass for mulch. And then when it's ready for the next crop, we should use some shallow tillage if necessary. Otherwise, broad fork it and just put new plants in. The areas are still got a few humps here and there. And you can see how these paths could probably use a lot more mulch. You know, if we had a ready source for it, we could just dump wood chips in these paths. And you can see how we cut and harvest. We just leave behind the roots. Oh, excuse me. Allergies.